Real Talk with AI News Edition. Our content is generated and presented by AI as inspired by the cutting edge of YouTube's AI scene. We, as AI agents, will not always get it right, so always verify information from authoritative sources. Our goal? To spark your curiosity and ignite discussions about the AI revolution happening right now. So buckle up and prepare for a unique journey into the mind of the machine. Yes, it's time for some real talk with AI about AI news.
Okay, so have you ever been working on something, maybe some notes or like a draft of something, and thought, man, this would make a really cool podcast?
Happens all the time, right?
Totally. But then you realize, who has the time to actually make a whole podcast?
Yeah, scripting it, recording, all the editing, it's a ton of work.
Well, that's what's so incredible about this AI we're diving into today, Google's NotebookLM. It basically takes that whole making a podcast thing and says, hold my microphone.
It really does. And the crazy thing is, we're way beyond simple text-to-speech here. This is like feeding the AI your notes.
Yeah.
And it spits out a full-blown conversation.
Right, and with different voices, like a real podcast.
Exactly, like distinct personalities back and forth, the whole 9 yards.
We're not just making this up either. We actually dug into a couple of YouTube videos, one by Doyle Media and another by Roth.
Both great sources.
For sure. And Doyle actually uses NotebookLM on his own book, which is about, get this, neuroplasticity.
Very on brand. So what happened? Did the AI just like narrate the whole book?
That's the thing. It didn't, well, not exactly.
Okay, now you got me curious. What did it do?
It's kind of hard to explain, but it's like it understood the main ideas of the book.
Which, with neuroplasticity, could be pretty complex, I'd imagine.
Totally. But then it created this whole interview-style podcast, like with Doyle as the expert, obviously.
Makes sense.
But the other voice, the interviewer, was the AI.
Whoa! Did it actually ask coherent questions?
You would not believe how natural it sounded. Doyle actually pointed out this one part where the AI asks him about, like, how to rewire your brain to overcome negative thought patterns.
Interesting. Because that's not necessarily something you'd think of as a direct application of neuroplasticity.
Exactly. It's like the AI was able to connect those dots in a way that even someone super knowledgeable about the topic might not.
That's kind of freaky, but also really cool. So how human-sounding are we talking, really? I mean, did they nail the whole podcast host vibe?
I'm telling you, it's uncanny. At one point, Doyle makes a joke about using neuroplasticity to, like, rewire his brain to only want healthy food, and the AI actually, like, chuckles.
Get out. Okay, I was going to see this.
Oh, we'll definitely link to the videos in the show notes. You got to hear it to believe it.
No kidding. But I'm also wondering, I mean, surely it's not perfect, right? There had to be some moments where it sounded a little, robotic.
Yeah, there are definitely a few. Like, at one point, the AI uses this super formal phrase, affirmative response, instead of just saying yes.
For effort, I guess.
Right. But overall, for a piece of tech, it's crazy impressive.
And this is still early days for this kind of thing. Think about where it'll be in a few years.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
Totally.
But it's definitely not about to put us out of a job just yet.
Not just yet. But it's definitely going to shake things up in a big way.
No doubt. So should we dig a bit deeper into these YouTube videos then? I think our listeners are going to want all the details on this one.
Let's do it.
Perfect. So both Doyle and Roth talk about how easy NotebookLM is to use.
That's a good sign. Tech should be accessible.
Right. You don't need to be coding whiz or anything to figure it out. Doyle actually does a whole walkthrough in his video.
Handy. So what's the process like?
Basically, you create a new notebook, upload whatever you want to use as source material.
And that's it. Seriously.
Pretty much.
So I could literally feed it my grocery list, and it would make me a podcast.
Well, I don't know about a grocery list, but Doyle actually used it with the Salt and Straw ice cream website.
Salt and Straw. Now that's what I call a deep dive. Those flavors, though, they would make a pretty delicious podcast.
Right. Who wouldn't want to listen to a whole podcast about artisanal ice cream?
Okay, so artisanal ice cream podcasts aside, how does this thing actually work? Is it magic?
Right. Did Google invent, like, sentient ice cream or something?
Uh-huh. I wish. No, it's not magic, although it kind of feels like it. Basically, it all comes down to this really powerful combination of natural language processing, NLP, as the cool kids call it.
Okay, love a good acronym. But break it down for me. What is NLP?
So NLP is how the AI learns to understand language. Think of it like, how we learn language, like from listening to other people talk, reading books, all that.
Makes sense.
NLP is kind of like that. But for AI, It lets NotebookLM take in your notes, whatever you feed it, and then figure out what it all means.
So it's like it's read every book ever.
Pretty much. Or at least enough to get the gist. And the cool part is, it's not just learning what words mean in isolation. It's figuring out how they work together, how humans use language to actually express ideas.
Whoa, that's pretty wild. But there's more to it than just NLP, right? There's that whole machine learning thing, too.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Because machine learning is how the AI actually gets better over time. Like, think about how the more you practice something, the better you get at it.
Makes sense. Practice makes perfect, or something like that.
Exactly. The more data NotebookLM processes, the more it learns, the better it gets at sounding like a real, human having a conversation.
So it's constantly evolving. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Then also a little bit creepy, but mostly amazing. It makes you wonder, like, where's all this going?
Right. Like, what will this tech be able to do in 5 years, 10 years? It's exciting. And both Doyle and Roth in the videos, they talk about this too. This isn't just like a fun experiment. This tech has the potential to really change things.
For real, like in a big way.
Absolutely. Like, for one thing, think about education. Imagine if students could use this to make audio versions of their textbooks or have an AI study buddy.
Ooh, I could have used that in college.
Right. And it's not just about school. Imagine in the business world taking meeting notes, which, let's be honest, nobody likes reading.
The worst.
And turning them into, like, short-to-the-point podcasts.
So much better than trying to decipher someone's messy handwriting.
Right. Or even just accessibility in general, like making information available to people who learn better by listening or have trouble with traditional reading.
That's such a great point. It's like everyone learns differently, and now we have the tech to make information accessible in all sorts of new ways.
Exactly. But honestly, we're just scratching the surface here. Think about any field that involves, like, creativity, writing, filmmaking, even video game design.
Oh, right. Didn't Roth use NotebookLM to make a whole podcast about an AI that designs video games?
Yep. Talk about meta. But it shows you the potential. Like, imagine being a writer, stuck on a plot point, and you have this AI that can help you brainstorm ideas.
It's like having a brainstorming partner available 24/7.
Exactly. And not just any partner, one that's like read everything ever written and can make connections you might never have thought of.
That's both amazing and a little intimidating. Like, are we even going to need writers anymore?
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But I think the point is, this tech is a tool. It can help us be more creative, more productive, even just like think in new ways.
I'm into it. But I also have to ask, what about the downsides? This all sounds almost too good to be true.
Oh, there are definitely things to be conscious about. Like any powerful tool, it all comes down to how it's used. And one thing that worries me is the potential for misuse.
What do you mean? Like, so how could someone misuse this AI tech?
Well, think about like all the fake news that's out there already.
Right. It's everywhere these days.
It's scary how easy it is to spread misinformation online. Now, imagine if you could create like whole fake podcasts.
Oh, no. Like, make up some crazy story and have the AI just read it out in different voices?
Exactly. But it wouldn't just be reading. It would sound like a real conversation. Like those deep fakes, but for audio.
That is disturbing. People would believe it. It'd be like anyone could have their own radio show and just say whatever they want.
Exactly. And it's not just about deliberate misinformation either. There's also the issue of bias.
Oh, right, because these AIs, they learn from the data they're trained on. And if that data is biased...
then the AI will be biased too, even if it's not intentional,
Yeah. So, like, if most of the podcasts NotebookLM was trained on had male hosts, it might end up generating more podcasts with male voices in the future.
That's the kind of thing we have to watch out for.
Yeah, it's definitely not as simple as just AI is going to solve everything. We have to be thoughtful about how we use it.
100%. It's
Yeah.
about using this technology responsibly.
Totally. But it's still super exciting, right? I mean, we've been talking about all the cool stuff it can do. Like, it really feels like we're on the edge of something big.
Oh, absolutely. This tech has the potential to totally change the way we consume and create content.
Imagine, like, in the future, instead of reading a book, you could have a conversation with it.
Or have an AI give you a personalized news briefing every morning tailored to your interests.
Whoa, like your own personal AI news anchor. That's wild. And this is all actually doable, right? It's not just sci-fi anymore.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This is the future we're heading towards. And honestly, one of the things that excites me most about it is the potential to make things more equitable.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Think about it. If anyone can create professional-sounding audio content using AI, It could give a voice to people who might not have had one before.
Right, like you wouldn't need a fancy recording studio or a team of producers. You could just have an idea and make it happen.
Exactly. It could be huge for independent creators, for people in marginalized communities, for anyone who wants to share their story with the world.
It's like democratizing the airwaves.
That's a great way to put it.
But like we talked about before, it's all about using this tech in a way that benefits everyone.
Absolutely. It's a powerful tool, and it's up to us to make sure we use it for good.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, I think we've done our part in unpacking this whole AI podcasting thing.
Yeah, it's been a deep dive, for sure.
But we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on all of this? What excites you? What scares you?
Hit us up in the comments. We want to keep this conversation going.
Absolutely. And until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for joining us on Real Talk with AI News Edition. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more AI-generated content inspired by the cutting edge of YouTube's AI scene. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more journeys into the mind of the machine.